I spent 9 years building something perfect. 9 years designing a federal compliance system so airtight that regulators used us as their model case study. Then, on a Friday afternoon, in a sterile conference room in Denver, my boss Trevor looked straight at me and said, "Your role is redundant, sweetie. We need flexibility." I slid my security badge across that polished table without saying a single word. I walked out. Monday morning, the federal auditors arrived unannounced, and the person I'd named as my sole co-administrator made them laugh hysterically. The drive home that Friday felt surreal. My hands gripped the steering wheel of my Honda so tight, my knuckles turned white. Trevor's voice kept replaying in my head. Redundant. Sweetie. Like I was some intern who'd overstayed her welcome, not the woman who'd spent nearly a decade making precision compliance solutions untouchable. I'd started there right out of graduate school, 24 years old, with a master's degree in information systems and stars in my eyes. They'd hired me as a junior systems analyst, gave me a cubicle in the basement, and told me to help update their compliance tracking software. That software was a mess, a patchwork of spreadsheets and outdated databases that required 3 full-time employees just to maintain. Within 6 months, I'd proposed a complete overhaul. My boss at the time, a kind woman named Sharon, who retired 4 years ago, gave me the green light. She saw something in me. She believed in me, so I built it from the ground up. My system tracked every federal regulation change across 17 different agencies. It auto-updated compliance protocols the moment new rules were published. It generated audit-ready documentation at the click of a button. It was beautiful, it was bulletproof, and it made precision compliance solutions a fortune. We passed 6 federal audits with 0 findings. 0. Do you know how rare that is? Companies in our industry usually rack up minor violations like parking tickets, but not us. We were pristine. The Securities and Exchange Commission actually wrote a case study about our compliance architecture. The Internal Revenue Service sent observers to learn our methods. We became the gold standard. And I was the architect of all of it, the only person who understood every layer, every fail-safe, every protocol. I designed it that way intentionally. Security through obscurity, my professors used to say. The fewer people who understood the complete system, the harder it was to compromise. Trevor knew all this. He'd been promoted to senior vice president 3 years ago, right around the time Sharon retired. He was a salesman, not a systems expert. He understood profit margins and client retention. He didn't understand the technical brilliance that made those profits possible. But I never thought he'd fire me. My phone started buzzing before I even got home. Text messages from coworkers. Jenny, my assistant, wrote, "What happened? Are you okay?" Then, an hour later, "They're looking for the master access protocols. Do you have them?" I stared at that message for a long time. Master access protocols. Of course, they were looking for those. Without them, they couldn't make system-wide changes. They couldn't generate the specialized reports that our biggest clients paid premium rates for. They couldn't do much of anything beyond basic data entry. I didn't respond. Saturday passed in a blur. I cleaned my apartment. I went for a long run. I tried not to think about Monday. Sunday morning, I made pancakes and sat on my balcony watching Denver wake up beneath a cloudless sky. My phone kept buzzing. More texts from Jenny? A few from other colleagues. One from Jake, a senior analyst I had mentored, asking if I wanted to meet for coffee. I ignored them all. Sunday night at 9:17, my email pinged. Trevor Gladstone. Subject line. Urgent. Transition protocols required. The message was terse. Dusty, we need to discuss transition protocols for the compliance system. Please come to the office Monday morning at 7. This is time sensitive. I deleted it. At 6:14 Monday morning, I was drinking coffee and scrolling through news on my tablet when I saw it. A small headline in the business section. Multi-agency federal audit announced for Denver compliance firm. My coffee mug stopped halfway to my lips. The article was brief. The IRS, SEC, and Department of Labor had jointly announced a surprise comprehensive audit of precision compliance solutions, effective immediately. The audit teams would arrive Monday morning. The company had been selected as part of a random compliance verification initiative. Random. Right. My phone exploded. 17 missed calls in the span of 10 minutes. Voicemails from Trevor, from Patricia Wong in legal, from people in accounting I barely knew. I listened to Trevor's first message. Dusty, we need you here right now. The federal teams are in the building. We can't access half the documentation they're requesting. Call me back immediately. His voice had lost all its Friday afternoon smugness. He sounded terrified. I finished my coffee slowly. Then I got dressed, grabbed my laptop bag, and drove to a coffee shop 3 blocks from my apartment. A place with good Wi-Fi and comfortable chairs. I ordered a vanilla latte and opened my laptop. The calls kept coming. I let them all go to voicemail. At 9:32, Trevor walked into the coffee shop. He was sweating despite the cool November morning. His tie was crooked. He spotted me in the corner and practically ran over. Dusty. Thank God. I've been calling you for hours. I took a sip of my latte. I'm aware. You have to come back to the office. Now. The auditors are asking for documentation you designed. Brittany doesn't know what any of this means. Brittany. I almost smiled. I'm redundant, remember? I kept my voice pleasant. You need flexibility. Trevor pulled out the chair across from me and sat down without asking. I didn't mean it that way. You know how corporate restructuring goes. It's just terminology. You're invaluable to us, Dusty. Irreplaceable. We'll give you a raise. 20%, 30, whatever you want. My role doesn't exist anymore, I said. You terminated it. Can't go back to a position that's been eliminated. His jaw clenched. The charm was cracking. Don't be difficult. You have a contractual obligation. You signed non-compete and intellectual property agreements. You're required to provide transition assistance. Now, I did smile. My contract terminated the moment you fired me, and I fulfilled every obligation. Company policy required me to name a backup administrator for system continuity. I did exactly that. I named Brittany Sanderson as co-administrator 3 months ago. It's all documented in the security protocols. Trevor's face went pale. Brittany. The receptionist. The receptionist, I confirmed. She has the exact same system access level I do. Full administrative privileges. She's perfectly capable of helping you. She answers phones. Then you probably should have hired that second compliance architect I requested for 2 years straight. I closed my laptop. I sent 14 separate emails recommending we add senior-level redundancy to the team. You denied every request, said it was too expensive. So when you forced me to name a backup administrator, I named someone with the lowest security clearance in the company. Seemed fitting. Trevor stood up so fast his chair scraped loudly against the floor. Other customers looked over. You're sabotaging us. I'm drinking coffee. I met his eyes. You should get back to the office. Those auditors are probably wondering where you are. He leaned forward, hands on the table. This isn't over, Dusty. Then he left. I ordered another latte. By Monday afternoon, I'd received 41 phone calls. I didn't answer any of them. I went to a movie. Some action thriller I couldn't focus on. My mind kept drifting back to what was happening at Precision Compliance Solutions. I pictured Brittany sitting in my old office, surrounded by frantic executives demanding she explain compliance architectures she'd never seen before. Brittany was sweet. 22 years old, always cheerful, genuinely kind. She'd started as a receptionist 2 months ago. She wore floral dresses and kept a photo of her golden retriever on her desk. She had absolutely zero technical training. I hadn't wanted to drag her into this. But company policy was clear. Every system administrator must designate a backup with equivalent access privileges. For 3 years, I'd been asking them to hire someone qualified. 3 years of budget meetings, where Trevor insisted we couldn't afford another senior compliance architect. 3 years of me working 70-hour weeks because there was no one else who could handle the workload. So, when they'd forced me to name someone, I'd chosen Brittany. I'd documented my reasoning in an email to Human Resources. I'd explained that without proper staffing, I had no qualified personnel to designate. I'd named the person with the most limited security clearance as a form of protest, hoping it would finally make them understand how vulnerable they were. They'd approved it without reading the email. My phone rang again. This time it was Patricia Wong, the company's legal counsel. I'd always liked Patricia. She was sharp, professional, didn't play games. I answered, "Dusty, thank you for picking up." Her voice was carefully neutral. "I need to discuss your contractual obligations regarding transition assistance." "There's nothing to discuss, Patricia." I was terminated. My role was eliminated as redundant. Redundant positions don't require transitions. Your employment contract specifies that in the event of separation, you're required to provide reasonable assistance to ensure business continuity. Show me the clause. I kept my voice level. Specifically, show me where it applies to terminations for redundancy, because redundancy means the position no longer exists. You can't ask me to transition responsibilities that officially don't exist. There was a long pause. Patricia was reading something. I could hear papers rustling. "The contract language is ambiguous," she finally admitted. "No, it's clear. I drafted the language myself 5 years ago when you revised the employee handbook. I made sure redundancy terminations were explicitly excluded from transition requirements. You approved it." Another pause. Longer this time. "Dusty, regardless of contractual technicalities, you built that system. You're the only one who fully understands it. The federal auditors are requesting specific documentation that we cannot produce without proper system access. Brittany is unable to help. She doesn't have the knowledge base. Then you should have thought about that before firing me. We're prepared to bring you back. Full reinstatement. Salary increase. We can negotiate terms. I don't want to come back. Then help us as a consultant. We'll pay you." "No, Dusty." Patricia's voice sharpened slightly. "You're putting 300 jobs at risk. If this audit goes badly, the company could face serious consequences. People who had nothing to do with your termination could lose their livelihoods." That hit harder than I wanted to admit. She was right. The junior analysts, the administrative staff, the field consultants who worked with clients, they'd all done nothing wrong. They were good people, just trying to do their jobs. "I didn't put those jobs at risk," I said quietly. "Trevor did. When he fired his lead compliance architect the day before a federal audit, he didn't know about the audit." "That's exactly my point, Patricia. He didn't know. He should have. If he'd bothered to check the compliance calendar I maintained, he would have seen we were due for a random verification audit any time in the next 60 days. It's all documented. But he doesn't understand how any of this works. He just knows we pass audits, and he takes credit for it." I hung up. My phone immediately rang again. I turned it off. That evening, I went for a long walk through my neighborhood. The autumn air was crisp, leaves crunching under my feet. I tried to think through my options. Part of me felt guilty. Patricia was right about the innocent employees. But another part of me, the part that had spent 9 years pouring everything into that company, only to be dismissed as redundant, felt something darker. Satisfaction, maybe? Vindication. I got home at 8 and turned my phone back on. 23 new voicemails. I deleted them all without listening. Tuesday morning, I woke up to find a certified letter slipped under my apartment door. It must have been hand-delivered. I opened it with shaking hands. Cease and desist. From Precision Compliance Solutions. They were accusing me of corporate sabotage, theft of intellectual property, and breach of contract. They claimed I had maliciously, and with premeditation, locked them out of systems essential to business operations. They alleged I had planted logic bombs designed to trigger during federal audits. They were threatening to sue me for $15 million in damages. I read it 3 times. My hands were shaking. Logic bombs? I'd done no such thing. I'd built that system to be clean, ethical, transparent. Every line of code had been reviewed. Every protocol documented. I'd done everything by the book. They were lying, making up allegations to force me back. I called my old colleague Jake. He was one of the few people at the company I truly trusted. "Dusty," he sounded relieved. "Are you okay? It's chaos here." "Jake, what's happening?" He lowered his voice. "Trevor's telling everyone you sabotaged the system. He said you planted malicious code that activated when you left. HR is gathering statements. They're asking everyone to document any concerning behavior you displayed." My stomach dropped. Concerning behavior? They're building a case against you. I'm so sorry. I told them you'd never do anything like that, but they're not listening. They're desperate. After I hung up with Jake, I sat on my couch, staring at the cease and desist letter. $15 million. I didn't have $15 million. I had $32,000 in savings and a mortgage. A lawsuit like this would destroy me even if I won. Legal fees alone could bankrupt me. I found an employment attorney through a referral service. Donald Pierce. His office was in a high-rise downtown. I met with him that afternoon. Brought all my documentation. Donald was in his 50s, gray hair, expensive suit. He read through everything carefully. "They don't have a case," he said finally. "But that doesn't mean they can't hurt you. Large corporations can tie you up in litigation for years. Bleed you dry with legal costs, even if they eventually lose. So what do I do? Settle. Give them what they want. Get them to drop the suit. Move on with your life. That's it? They fire me, lie about me, threaten me, and I'm supposed to just give in?" Donald shrugged. "Sometimes pragmatism beats principles. Fighting this could cost you hundreds of thousands in legal fees." I left his office feeling hollow. By Tuesday evening, I'd made my decision. I'd give them access, let them back into the system, take whatever consultant fee they offered and disappear, start over somewhere else. My pride wasn't worth financial ruin. But then Jake called again. "Don't come back," he whispered. "Don't agree to anything. Jake, they're suing me for $15 million. I know, but listen. They hired an emergency forensics team. I overheard Trevor talking to them. He told them to document evidence that you built back doors into the system. They're going to claim you designed vulnerabilities intentionally." My blood went cold. "What? If you come back and touch that system, they'll record everything you do. Then they'll claim whatever you're doing is you exploiting security holes you built. They're setting you up, Dusty. They want you to give them ammunition for their lawsuit." I didn't sleep that night. Wednesday morning, my phone buzzed with a news alert. I'd set up Google Alerts for the company name months ago, just to keep track of industry developments. The headline made my heart stop. "Former employee accused of locking company out of critical systems during federal audit." The article cited anonymous sources at Precision Compliance Solutions, claiming a disgruntled former employee had sabotaged their compliance infrastructure. It didn't name me directly, but anyone in the industry would figure it out within hours. My phone started ringing. LinkedIn messages poured in. Most were from colleagues expressing concern. A few were nastier. One former coworker I'd considered a friend sent a message. "Really disappointed in you. Didn't think you'd stoop to sabotage." I didn't respond to any of them. The recruiter I'd been talking to about a position at a firm in Seattle called. "Dusty, I'm so sorry, but given the current controversy, we're going in another direction. I hope you understand." I understood perfectly. I was toxic now, unemployable. Wednesday afternoon, Donald Pierce called me. His voice was grim. "They filed the lawsuit. You're being served today. $15 million in damages, plus legal fees and punitive damages. They're asking for injunctive relief to prevent you from disclosing any company information." The process server arrived at my apartment at 4:30. A woman in her 40s who looked sympathetic as she handed me the thick envelope. I signed for it and closed the door. The lawsuit was brutal, page after page of allegations. They claimed I'd designed the compliance system with hidden backdoors that only I could access. They said I'd deliberately created single points of failure. They accused me of refusing to train other employees so I could maintain monopolistic control over critical infrastructure. Every accusation was twisted truth. Yes, I was the only one who fully understood the system, because they'd refused to hire anyone else qualified. Yes, I'd maintained primary control over critical infrastructure, because that's what a lead systems architect does. Yes, I'd built in security protocols that required my authorization, because that's basic information security. But they made it sound sinister, deliberate, malicious. I couldn't afford to fight this. My savings would last 3 months, maybe 4 if I was careful. Then, I'd lose my apartment, my car, everything. I was trapped. That evening, I sat on my balcony watching the sun set over the mountains. Denver was beautiful this time of year. I'd always loved this city. Now I might have to leave it, start over somewhere. No one knew about this disaster. My laptop pinged with an email notification. I almost didn't check it, but something made me look. The sender was listed as anonymous, no subject line. I opened it cautiously. Inside was an audio file, 23 minutes long. A recording. I clicked play. Trevor's voice filled my headphones. "We need to bury Dusty Brennan professionally. Make sure she can never work in compliance again. That's the only way to guarantee she cooperates. If she thinks she has other options, she'll keep refusing to help us." Patricia Wong's voice responded. "That's aggressive, Trevor. Are you sure you want to go that route? She's holding us hostage. The board is asking questions I can't answer. The stock price is dropping. Our biggest clients are threatening to pull their contracts. If we don't get this audit sorted out, I'm finished. So yes, I'm sure. Destroy her reputation. Make it clear to everyone in the industry that she's unstable, vindictive, a saboteur. By the time we're done, no one will touch her." The recording continued. Trevor and Patricia discussed strategy, how to leak stories to the press, which industry contacts to call, how to frame the narrative. I listened to the whole thing twice. Then I noticed a second email. Same anonymous sender. This one had a simple message. "She deserves better. Good luck. Brittany." It had to be Brittany. She'd been in those meetings. She had access to the conference rooms. And she was one of the few people in that company who'd ever shown me genuine kindness. I saved the recording to 3 different backup locations. Then I received another email. This one wasn't anonymous. The sender was Director Susan Hartwell, Federal Auditor. Subject line: requesting your testimony. My heart pounded as I opened it. "Miss Brennan, I am the lead auditor conducting the compliance review of Precision Compliance Solutions. During our investigation, we have become aware of certain circumstances regarding your recent separation from the company. We have subpoenaed your personnel file and reviewed your employment history. We have also noted that your termination occurred 24 hours before our audit commenced. We would like to speak with you at your earliest convenience regarding the compliance architecture you designed and the circumstances of your departure. Please contact me directly at the number below. This is not a compulsory summons, but your cooperation would be greatly appreciated and may be relevant to our investigation." I read it 5 times. The federal government wanted to talk to me. They'd subpoenaed my records. They knew something was wrong. I looked at the timestamp on the email. Sent at 6:47 p.m. A federal auditor was working late, personally reaching out to me. I called Donald Pierce. "They want me to testify," I told him. "Against your former employer? Dusty, that could make things much worse. They'll claim you're retaliating. Or it could make things better. The government has resources I don't. If they're investigating the company, maybe I'm not the villain here. This is risky. Everything's risky now. I'm already being sued for $15 million. How much worse can it get? Donald was quiet for a moment. Let me reach out to them. See what they actually want. Don't commit to anything yet. But I'd already made up my mind. I was tired of being defensive, tired of being scared. These people had taken 9 years of my life, my professional reputation, and my peace of mind. They'd lied about me, threatened me, tried to destroy me. Maybe it was time to stop running. Thursday morning, I met Director Susan Hartwell at a federal building downtown. Donald came with me. We were escorted to a conference room on the 8th floor. Bland government furniture, fluorescent lights, a window overlooking the city. Director Hartwell was in her 50s, African American, with sharp eyes and an air of absolute competence. She shook my hand firmly. Miss Brennan, thank you for coming. I know this has been a difficult week for you. That's an understatement. She smiled slightly. I imagine so. Let me be direct. We're expanding our audit of precision compliance solutions. What began as a routine verification review has uncovered significant irregularities. We need to understand the compliance architecture you built, and we need to understand why you were terminated immediately before our arrival. They claimed my position was redundant. Was it? No. Can you explain what you actually did at that company? So I did. For the next hour, I walked her through everything. How I'd built the system from scratch. The years of development. The layers of security. The automated protocols that made them audit-proof. Director Hartwell listened intently, taking notes. Occasionally, she'd ask clarifying questions. Her colleague, a younger man named Agent Gary Powell, sat beside her recording everything. Why did you name a receptionist as co-administrator? Director Hartwell finally asked. This was the question I'd been waiting for. I pulled out my laptop and opened a folder. I'd like to show you something. I displayed 2 years of emails, requests for additional staff, budget proposals, risk assessments I'd written explaining why having a single point of failure in compliance architecture was dangerous. I asked for help 14 times, I said. 14 separate formal requests to hire a second compliance architect. Every single one was denied. Trevor Gladstone specifically told me it was too expensive. He said I was handling things fine on my own. Why did we need to pay another 6-figure salary? So you were the only person who understood the system? Completely. Which violated best practices and company policy. Policy required backup administrators for all critical systems. So I kept asking them to hire someone qualified to be that backup. They refused. Finally, 3 months ago, HR sent me a memo demanding I designate a co-administrator immediately or face disciplinary action. I pulled up that email too. I responded by naming Brittany Sanderson. I specifically wrote in my response email that she was unqualified, that this was a protest, and that I was only complying under duress because they'd given me no qualified options. I attached documentation showing all my previous requests for proper staffing. I sent it to HR, to Trevor, and to Patricia Wong in legal. Did they respond? I got an automated approval. No one actually read the email. Director Hartwell leaned back in her chair. So let me make sure I understand. You repeatedly warned them about single points of failure. They ignored you. They then forced you to name a backup administrator. You named someone unqualified as a form of documented protest, and they approved it without reading your explanation. That's correct. And then they fired you for being redundant, 16 hours before your audit. Director Hartwell and Agent Powell exchanged glances. Miss Brennan, you should know that we've found irregularities in the company's financial reporting. Your compliance system was designed to flag certain types of discrepancies automatically. Those flags were overridden manually. Do you know who had manual override authority? My stomach tightened. Only 2 people, Trevor Gladstone and Nathan Cross, the CFO. When were these overrides implemented? I'd have to check the logs, But I can tell you the system kept detailed records of all administrative actions. Every override would be timestamped and linked to a specific user account. That's what we suspected. Unfortunately, we cannot access those logs without proper administrative credentials. I understood immediately. You need me to help you get into the system. We're requesting your cooperation as a witness and expert consultant. You wouldn't be helping the company. You'd be helping us investigate potential fraud. Donald cleared his throat. Director Hartwell, you're aware that Precision Compliance Solutions is currently suing my client for $15 million? They're claiming she sabotaged their systems. I'm aware. I'm also aware that their lawsuit appears to be witness intimidation. We'll be filing a formal complaint about that. And for what it's worth, we've examined the system architecture remotely. There's no evidence of sabotage, backdoors, or malicious code. What we see is a brilliantly designed, transparent system that does exactly what it was built to do. The problem isn't the system. The problem is the people trying to manipulate it. Something loosened in my chest. The federal government believed me. I'll help you, I said. Whatever you need. Director Hartwell nodded. Thank you. This is going to get more complicated before it gets better. You should be prepared for that. She had no idea how right she was. I left the federal building feeling lighter than I had in days. Donald was less optimistic. They're going to escalate, he warned. When they realize you're cooperating with federal investigators, they'll come at you harder. He was right. By Thursday evening, the story had morphed. A major industry publication ran a detailed article, Compliance Architect or Corporate Saboteur, inside the growing controversy at Precision Compliance Solutions. The article was clearly sourced from company insiders. It painted me as a disgruntled employee who deliberately designed system vulnerabilities to maintain job security. It quoted anonymous colleagues describing me as controlling, paranoid, and resistant to collaboration. My phone exploded with messages. Some supportive, many not. A former client I'd worked with personally sent a LinkedIn message asking if the allegations were true. A professional contact I'd known for years unfollowed me. I was being erased. Professionally blackballed. My reputation, built over a decade of excellent work, was being destroyed in real time. Friday morning, I woke up to find my LinkedIn profile had been reported for suspicious activity and temporarily restricted. Someone had mass reported me, probably using multiple accounts. It took me 3 hours and several support tickets to get it reinstated. Nathan Cross, the CFO, called me directly. His voice was smooth, reasonable. Dusty, this is Nathan. I think we've all let this situation get out of hand. Trevor made a mistake firing you. I told him it was a bad idea. But what's done is done. The question now is how we move forward. By suing me for $15 million? That was Trevor's decision. I can make it go away. Come back, help us through this audit, and we'll drop all legal action, plus a severance package, $200,000. You can walk away clean, start fresh somewhere else. So you can claim I was paid off and discredit anything I tell the federal investigators? There was a pause. I don't know what you're implying. I'm implying that you're trying to buy my silence. And I'm not interested. Don't be foolish, Dusty. You're making enemies you don't need. We're trying to help you. I don't need your help anymore. I hung up before he could respond. But the call shook me. $200,000 was real money. Enough to pay off my mortgage, rebuild my savings, give me breathing room to find a new job without the pressure of looming financial disaster, and I just turned it down. That afternoon, Brittany contacted me, not through work email, but through a personal Instagram message. I'm so sorry about everything, she wrote. They put me on administrative leave. They're saying I might lose my job. They offered me $50,000 if I help their computer people get into the system. I don't know what to do. I'm scared. My heart sank. They were going after her too. I called her. She answered on the first ring, her voice shaking. Brittany, listen to me carefully. Don't sign anything. Don't agree to anything. And absolutely don't help them access that system. But I need this job. I have student loans. I can't afford to be unemployed. They're going to use you as a scapegoat. If this goes badly, they'll blame both of us. Say we conspired together. Don't give them ammunition." She started crying. "I didn't ask for any of this. I just wanted to answer phones and save money for grad school." "I know. I'm so sorry you got dragged into this. But you have to protect yourself now. Don't trust anything they tell you." After we hung up, I sat in my apartment staring at the wall. This had spiraled so far beyond anything I'd imagined. Brittany was collateral damage. An innocent kid who'd done absolutely nothing wrong except exist in the wrong place at the wrong time. I'd never wanted revenge. I just wanted recognition, respect, an apology maybe, but I'd triggered something much bigger. And now I had to see it through. Friday morning arrived with surprising news. The company's board of directors had called an emergency meeting. Jake texted me the update. "Big stuff happening. Trevor's suspended. Nathan looks like he's going to have a heart attack." The board brought in an outside crisis management firm. Things were moving fast. At 11 a.m., Director Hartwell called me. "Miss Brennan, we're expanding the scope of our investigation. We found evidence of systematic manipulation of compliance data, financial disclosures that don't match internal records, tax filings that appear fraudulent. This goes far beyond a routine audit." "How bad is it?" "Bad enough that we're involving the FBI, White Collar Crime Division. We'll need you to testify before a federal grand jury, probably within the next few weeks." My head spun. FBI, grand jury. This was criminal now. What happens to the company? That depends on what we find. But I'll be honest with you, this doesn't look good for them. The fact that they fired their lead compliance architect the day before an audit raises obvious questions about consciousness of guilt. Over the weekend, the story broke nationally. CNN ran a segment about corporate compliance failures. They didn't name Precision Compliance Solutions specifically, but industry insiders knew. The company's stock dropped 23% on Monday morning. By Monday afternoon, both Trevor and Nathan had been formally suspended. The board appointed Helen Armstrong, a longtime board member, as interim CEO. Helen called me personally. Her voice was tired. "Miss Brennan, this is Helen Armstrong. I want to apologize on behalf of the board. What happened to you was unconscionable. We're conducting an internal investigation, and heads are going to roll. I hope you know that not everyone at this company supported Trevor's decision, but no one stopped him. You're right, and we're going to have to live with that. I'm calling because we're prepared to settle all legal claims. Drop the lawsuit, issue a public retraction of the allegations against you, provide a full severance package with benefits. We'd like to bring you back as a consultant to help stabilize things, but I understand if that's not something you're interested in." "You're right. I'm not interested. I understand. The settlement offer stands regardless. Our attorney will reach out to yours with details." She paused. "For what it's worth, what you built was remarkable. You deserved better than this." After the call, I sat quietly for a long time. It felt hollow. That apology. Too little, too late. That evening, Donald called with news. They're dropping the lawsuit. Full retraction. They're also offering $350,000 as a settlement. No strings attached except standard non-disparagement language. What does that mean? It means you can't go on Twitter and trash them, but you can cooperate fully with federal investigators. Actually, they specifically wrote in a carve-out for lawful cooperation with government agencies. They're scared. They're terrified. Their stock is in free fall. Major clients are pulling contracts. They're hemorrhaging money, and the federal investigation is just getting started. I thought about it for exactly 12 seconds. Take the deal. Smart choice. But I wasn't done. I called Director Hartwell. "I'll testify," I told her. "Whatever you need, and I'll help you get into that system. Every log file, every audit trail, every piece of documentation, it's all there. They can't hide what they did. We appreciate your cooperation, Miss Brennan. This is going to help a lot of people." Tuesday morning, I met with the federal investigative team. There were 7 of them now: IRS, SEC, Department of Labor, and 2 FBI agents. They set me up at a secure computer terminal. "Show us," Director Hartwell said. So I did. I logged into the system using my credentials, which miraculously still worked. Brittany's admin access meant they hadn't been able to lock me out without locking themselves out too. I pulled up the audit logs, years of data, every transaction, every report, every manual override. There, I pointed at the screen. September of last year, Nathan Cross overrode 18 separate compliance flags related to revenue recognition. Then Trevor approved the overrides. Agent Powell leaned forward. "Can you show us what those flags were catching?" I navigated to the detailed reports. The system had flagged potential improper revenue recognition, booking income from contracts that hadn't been finalized, reporting projected revenue as actual revenue. Classic accounting fraud. "Your system caught this?" Director Hartwell asked. "The system caught everything. That's what it was designed to do. But they had override authority. I'd complained about it, actually. Told them that executives shouldn't be able to override compliance flags without review. They told me I was being paranoid. How much fraudulent revenue are we looking at? I ran the calculations. Over the past 2 years, approximately $43 million in improperly recognized revenue. The room went very quiet. "That's securities fraud," one of the FBI agents said. Director Hartwell nodded. Yes, it is. They asked me to generate comprehensive reports, every override, every flag, every anomaly. The system I'd built was designed to make this easy. Within 3 hours, I'd produce documentation that would take forensic accountants weeks to compile manually. "This is remarkable," Agent Powell said, scrolling through the reports. "You built this to be completely transparent." That was the point. Compliance isn't about hiding problems. It's about identifying them and fixing them. They just decided to hide the problems instead. By Wednesday, the investigation had expanded dramatically. Subpoenas were being issued. More agents were being assigned. The company's offices were essentially under federal control, and I was no longer the villain. I was the whistleblower. Job offers started coming in. A firm in Silicon Valley called, offering me a position as their chief compliance officer, $200,000 salary, full benefits, equity stake. A consulting company in Boston reached out, then a firm in New York. Within a week, I had 6 serious offers. But the most interesting call came from the federal government itself. "Miss Brennan, this is Sharon Wu from the Office of Management and Budget. We've been following your case. We're looking for someone to help redesign compliance systems across multiple federal agencies. Would you be interested in discussing a consulting position?" "With the federal government?" "Correct. It would be a 3-year contract initially, with possibility of extension. The work would involve designing audit protocols for regulatory agencies, training auditors, and testifying before Congress about compliance best practices." The salary she quoted was triple what I'd made at Precision Compliance Solutions. "I'm very interested," I said. Friday morning, 2 weeks after my termination, the federal investigative team did something extraordinary. They called a mandatory all-hands meeting at Precision Compliance Solutions. Every employee had to attend. Jake texted me updates as it happened. Director Hartwell just walked in with like 20 people, agents everywhere. "This is insane. They're making everyone sit down. Helen looks like she's going to throw up. Oh my God, Dusty, you have to hear this. I was at home, but my phone rang. It was Agent Powell. Miss Brennan, I thought you'd want to listen to this. I'm putting you on speaker, but keep yourself muted. I heard the ambient noise of a large conference room. Shuffling. Whispers. Then Director Hartwell's voice, clear and authoritative. Good morning. I'm Director Susan Hartwell, lead investigator for the Joint Federal Task Force currently examining this organization. I'm going to be direct. We are formally expanding this investigation to include potential securities fraud, tax evasion, wire fraud, and obstruction of justice. Dead silence. Over the past 2 weeks, We have reviewed comprehensive compliance documentation spanning the past 5 years. We have discovered systematic manipulation of financial data, deliberate misrepresentation to shareholders and regulators, and orchestrated attempts to conceal these activities. We have also documented efforts to intimidate a witness. She paused. I need to speak with your system administrator. According to company records, that would be Brittany Sanderson? I heard movement, chairs scraping, then a young, trembling voice. I'm Brittany? Miss Sanderson, can you please explain your role in the compliance architecture? I answer phones. I don't know anything about the compliance system, but you're listed as co-administrator with full system access. Dusty gave me that access. I didn't ask for it. I don't even know what it means. Another pause. I imagine Director Hartwell letting that sink in. Who is Dusty? Helen's voice strained. Dusty Brennan, former employee. She was terminated. Why? Her position was redundant. I see. The architect of your entire compliance system was redundant. The skepticism in her voice was cutting. Let me make sure I understand the timeline. You fired your lead compliance architect on Friday afternoon. On Monday morning, federal auditors arrived for a previously scheduled audit. And now you cannot access your own compliance records because the only two people with system access are a terminated employee and a receptionist who has no technical training. Someone in the room laughed nervously. Director Hartwell's voice sharpened. This isn't funny. Your company is currently under investigation for multiple federal crimes. Your inability to produce required documentation is not amusing. It's evidence of either staggering incompetence or deliberate obstruction. Neither option is good for you. Agent Powell spoke next. His voice was almost cheerful. For what it's worth, whoever thought firing your compliance expert the day before a federal audit was a good idea should probably update their resume. I heard scattered laughter, actual laughter from the employees. Director Hartwell continued, I want everyone in this room to understand what's happening. This company has been falsely accusing Miss Dusty Brennan of sabotage and corporate espionage. In reality, Miss Brennan followed every protocol. She repeatedly warned your leadership about single points of failure. She requested proper staffing. She was ignored. When forced to name a backup administrator, she chose someone with minimal clearance as a documented protest. Your executives approved this without reading her explanation. More shifting in the crowd. Miss Brennan is now cooperating with our investigation as a witness and expert consultant. She is being paid the fair market rate for her expertise. She has provided us with comprehensive documentation that reveals systematic fraud within this organization. Documentation that your own system was designed to create, but which your executives attempted to suppress. Helen's voice desperate. Director Hartwell, this is highly irregular. You can't just take over our facility. Actually, we can. As of this moment, this facility is under federal oversight pending completion of our investigation. All servers and documentation are being seized. All financial records are being reviewed. No one leaves this building until we've completed initial interviews. Chows erupted. Voices overlapping, people shouting questions. Director Hartwell raised her voice. Everyone will remain calm. If you have information about financial irregularities, accounting fraud, or executive misconduct, now is the time to speak up. Cooperation will be noted favorably. Obstruction will be prosecuted. The call ended. I sat in my apartment, stunned. They'd done it. They'd actually called out the entire company publicly. My phone immediately rang again. This time it was a reporter from the Wall Street Journal. Miss Brennan, we're running a story about the federal takeover of Precision Compliance Solutions. Can you comment? Within an hour, the story was everywhere. Every major business news outlet picked it up. Compliance firm faces federal takeover after firing key employee. Corporate sabotage or corporate stupidity. The case of the redundant expert. The headlines were savage. Social media exploded. My LinkedIn profile, which had been restricted days earlier, was suddenly flooded with connection requests and supportive messages. This is what happens when companies don't value their technical experts. Every systems architect should read this story. By Friday afternoon, 6 different recruiters had reached out. 3 law firms wanted to discuss potential wrongful termination cases on my behalf. A literary agent asked if I'd consider writing a book. The company's stock crashed, down 47% by market close. Trevor Gladstone and Nathan Cross were both fired officially. The board issued a terse statement. Following an internal investigation, Trevor Gladstone and Nathan Cross are no longer employed by Precision Compliance Solutions. The board deeply regrets the errors in judgment that led to recent events. Patricia Wong, the legal counsel, resigned. Over the weekend, the company announced they were exploring a sale to preserve shareholder value and ensure business continuity. Jake texted me Sunday night. They're talking about layoffs, maybe 300 people. This is bad, Dusty. I felt sick. 300 innocent people losing their jobs because executives had committed fraud and tried to cover it up. But I also knew something important. I hadn't caused this. Trevor and Nathan had caused this. They'd made the decision to manipulate financial data. They'd made the decision to fire me. They'd made the decision to lie and threaten and intimidate. I just refused to help them hide it. Monday morning, the federal government formally filed criminal charges. Trevor faced 18 counts of securities fraud, wire fraud, and obstruction of justice. Nathan faced similar charges plus tax evasion. Both men were arrested at their homes. The company settled with federal regulators for $87 million in fines. And through it all, my phone kept ringing with opportunities. 2 months later, I stood in a conference room in Washington, D.C., preparing to testify before a congressional subcommittee on corporate governance and compliance. My new job with the Office of Management and Budget had started 3 weeks earlier. I was earning more than I'd ever imagined possible. I had a team of 12 people working under me. We were redesigning compliance frameworks for multiple federal agencies. But this testimony was important. Congress wanted to understand what had gone wrong at Precision Compliance Solutions and how to prevent similar situations. I wore a Navy suit, professional, confident. I looked nothing like the devastated woman who'd been fired 2 months ago. The hearing room was packed. Cameras everywhere. I recognized several faces from business news shows. The committee chairman, a senator from Ohio, welcomed me. Miss Brennan, thank you for being here today. Can you walk us through what happened? So I did. For 90 minutes, I explained everything. The system I'd built, the warnings I'd given, the requests for staff that were denied, the manipulation of compliance data, the termination, the intimidation, the investigation. I didn't exaggerate. I didn't editorialize. I just stated facts. The senators asked thoughtful questions. How could companies be prevented from retaliating against compliance experts? What safeguards should be mandatory? Should there be federal licensing for compliance architects, similar to how CPAs are licensed? I answered carefully, professionally. I'd prepared for weeks. At the end, the chairman thanked me. Miss Brennan, your testimony has been invaluable. What happened to you should never happen to any professional doing their job with integrity. You've turned a personal injustice into a public service, and we're grateful. Afterward, in the hallway, a young woman approached me. She was maybe 25, wearing business casual, carrying a portfolio. Miss Brennan? I'm Emma. I'm a junior compliance analyst at a tech firm in California. I just wanted to say thank you. Watching what you went through, how you stood up for yourself, it gave me courage. My boss has been pressuring me to overlook some questionable accounting. I reported it to our board yesterday. I hugged her. Good for you, that took guts. She wasn't the only one. Over the next hour, a dozen young professionals approached me. Women mostly, all working in compliance, audit, risk management, all telling similar stories of being undervalued, pressured, dismissed. I gave each of them my card. Call me if you need anything. Advice, references, just someone to talk to. We have to look out for each other. 3 months after my termination, Precision Compliance Solutions was sold to a larger firm for a fraction of its former value. Most employees lost their jobs. It was devastating, and I grieved for all those innocent people. But I also received a letter from Jake. He'd found a new position at a better company. He wrote, "You taught me something crucial. When they treat you as disposable, sometimes the best thing you can do is let them face the consequences of their own actions. I'm done staying quiet when I see problems. Thank you for showing me what real integrity looks like." Brittany contacted me too. She'd been accepted to graduate school and was studying information systems. "You inspired me," she wrote. "I want to understand what you built. Maybe someday I can design systems that help people too." I hired her as a part-time intern. 6 months after everything began, I received a formal commendation from the Office of the Inspector General for my cooperation in the investigation. It was framed and hung in my new office in a federal building in D.C. Director Susan Hartwell sent me a personal note with it. "Thank you for your integrity. The system you built was brilliant. The fact that it ultimately exposed the corruption it was designed to prevent is poetic justice. You should be proud." I was proud. Not of the chaos or the pain or the destroyed careers, but of the fact that I'd stood my ground. I'd refused to be intimidated. I'd refused to help corrupt people hide their corruption. A year after my termination, I was invited to give a keynote speech at the National Compliance and Ethics Conference. 3,000 people in the audience. Industry leaders, regulators, academics. I stood at that podium looking out at all those faces, and I thought about that Friday afternoon in Trevor's conference room. How small he'd made me feel. How powerless. I wasn't powerless anymore. When someone tells you you're redundant, I said into the microphone, "Remember this. If your absence would cause a catastrophe, you were never redundant, you were essential, and they knew it. Don't let anyone diminish your value. Don't let anyone intimidate you into compromising your integrity. And don't let anyone convince you that their failure to value you is your problem to solve." The applause was thunderous. After the speech, I stayed for 3 hours. Dozens of people wanted to talk, to share their stories, to ask advice. I listened to every single one. That evening, back in my hotel room, I opened my laptop. I'd been thinking about writing a book. Not a tell-all or a revenge memoir, but something useful. A guide for compliance professionals about how to protect themselves and their work. How to document everything. How to set boundaries. How to know when to walk away. I started typing. The title came to me immediately. Redundant. When your expertise becomes their threat. My phone buzzed. An email from a producer at Netflix. They wanted to discuss a documentary series about corporate whistleblowers. Would I be interested in participating? I smiled. A year ago, I'd been unemployed, sued for $15 million, my reputation in ruins. Now, I had more opportunities than I could handle. But the best thing wasn't the money, or the fame, or the job offers. It was the emails I got from young women in technical fields, women who'd read about my story and felt less alone, women who'd stood up to their own dismissive bosses and cited my example, women who were building careers in compliance and cybersecurity and risk management, armed with the knowledge that their expertise mattered. One email particularly moved me. It was from a woman named Sarah, a senior auditor at a manufacturing company. She wrote, "My CEO tried to pressure me into signing off on questionable financial statements. I refused. He threatened to fire me. I thought about your story, about how you walked away rather than compromise your integrity. So I walked away too. I reported him to the board and to federal regulators. They launched an investigation. He was fired last week. I just got promoted to CFO. Thank you for showing me that doing the right thing doesn't always destroy your career. Sometimes it's the people doing the wrong thing who get destroyed." I read that email 3 times, tears in my eyes. I'd never wanted revenge. I just wanted respect, recognition, for 9 years of excellent work. An apology would have been nice, but what I got was something bigger. I got vindication. I got justice. And most importantly, I got to be an example for other people in similar situations. I got to show them that you don't have to accept mistreatment. You don't have to save people from the consequences of their own cruelty. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is simply walk away with your dignity intact. Everything else is just bonus. Trevor Gladstone and Nathan Cross both went to prison. 3 years and 5 years respectively. Their careers were over. Their reputations destroyed. They'd lost everything trying to hide the truth. I'd lost nothing by telling it. And that's the real lesson, isn't it? Integrity costs less than corruption, even when it doesn't feel like it in the moment. Late that night, I poured myself a glass of wine and stood on the balcony of my hotel room overlooking Washington, D.C. The monuments were lit up against the dark sky. The Capitol dome glowed white. I thought about calling my mom, but it was too late. I'd call her tomorrow, tell her about the speech, about the standing ovation, about the opportunities pouring in. She'd be proud. She'd raised me to value integrity over convenience, to speak truth even when it was costly, to never compromise my principles for someone else's comfort. Thanks, Mom, I whispered into the night air. My phone buzzed one more time. A text from Director Susan Hartwell. Saw your speech online. Absolutely brilliant. You're changing the industry for the better. Keep going. I would keep going, because this wasn't just my story anymore. It was the story of every expert who'd been dismissed as redundant, every whistleblower who'd been silenced, every professional who'd been told their integrity was inconvenient. And the ending kept getting better. Now I want to ask you something. Have you ever been in a situation where you had to choose between your integrity and your career? How did you handle it? Share your story in the comments below. Your experience might help someone else facing that impossible choice. If this story resonated with you, please hit that like button. Subscribe to the channel for more stories about courage, integrity, and standing up for what's right. And share this video with someone who needs to hear that their expertise matters, that they're not redundant, that they deserve respect. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being here. And remember, your value isn't determined by people who fail to recognize it. Your value is inherent in the work you do, the integrity you maintain, and the courage you show when it matters most. Stay strong out there.